Thank you to the sponsor for this video, Keen. Visit trykeen.com/Nadiya to get your first 10 minutes for only $1.99 with one of their trusted advisors. I too had a chance to try Keen when I was approached to have them as a sponsor. I loved my reading, and I only recommend services I trust. Visit trykeen.com/Nadiya to get your first 10 minutes for only $1.99. Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to your horoscope for the week of June 26, 2022. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological week, without a doubt. Big moves happening in the sky now. We have Neptune standing still in the sky as we begin this week. It's called stationary. And whenever it is that a planet is standing still in the sky, preparing to change directions, it is at the height of its power. It is as close as it's going to get to the earth. And this represents a magnified sense of our awareness of its energies. Now, Neptune is god of the seas. And just like the seas, there's a whole lot of mystery there. There's a whole lot going on underneath the surface that isn't necessarily very clear. The symbolism of Neptune can be varied. It can represent confusion, uncertainty, but it can also represent inspiration and hope. That is at its best. However, this time it's Neptune stationary retrograde, which means that it is Neptune standing still and will begin to travel backwards in the sky early this week. And as Neptune does this, it is as if we are jolted awake out of some dream, out of some illusion, even if it's hard. It isn't necessarily that things or circumstances has necessarily changed dramatically. It is our own awareness of a reality that we're not quite sure we can trust, but also our own hope. And maybe having to accept where it is that that sense of hope perhaps was misplaced. This isn't an easy energy when it is that Neptune stations retrograde. It can feel deeply uncomfortable. There can be moments that feel disappointing, and I want to be straightforward with you on that. And yet there is every reason for hope at a time like this. Now, the feedback that I get from you guys in the comments is how much you like myth, right? You love it when I nerd out and talk about mythology. I know I really love to talk about mythology. One of my books, Prayers to the Sky, that you see back there, well, it actually talks about the origin myths of the different planets as part of cultivating a more deeper and meaningful connection with them, and as part of understanding yourself as an expression of these very sacred and divine energies. And so, with Neptune, let's talk about Neptune. Neptune was son of Rhea and Saturn. And Saturn received a prophecy, and the prophecy told Saturn that one of your sons is going to usurp you and become an even greater god than you ever have been. Well, Saturn didn't like this too much. He didn't want to lose his power. That's the thing about power. It likes holding on to itself. And so he proceeded to consume his children, right? So he first consumed Pluto, one of his sons. And as he consumed Pluto, it becomes very symbolic if you think about it. This sense of wanting to obliterate or eliminate your very existence. It's almost as if the father takes its seed back to its own body. And then Neptune was consumed. Now, next up was Jupiter, but Jupiter was a baby, and what happened was Rhea gave Saturn a rock disguised as a baby, and Saturn consumed this rock, thinking that he'd consumed Jupiter. And instead, Rhea sent Jupiter off to live with Chiron. And Chiron was a teacher to the gods, very loving to the gods, and very wise. And Jupiter was raised in absolute love. He was raised with the knowledge that he was meant to grow and would one day, as this prophecy stated, and the ancient Greeks really put a whole lot on prophecies, but yeah, the prophecy said he was going to usurp his father, or at least one of his brothers would, and he knew that his other brothers, well, they've already been consumed by his father. They've already been eliminated. They're not in the picture. So he kind of assumes that, okay, yeah, it's going to be me. And he's raised with this knowing of his destiny of greatness, to be the king of all gods. However, it's different for Pluto. It's different for Neptune. Now, eventually what happens is Jupiter returns, slices open the stomach of his dad, and out pops his siblings, right? Take a moment now to consider the remarkable differences in being raised in these different ways. Pluto and Neptune, it is as if their father, who is supposed to love them, wanted to obliterate them. And of course, Jupiter, raised in love and knowing and support and wisdom and all good things. And this tells you a lot about understanding these core energies. I think that this is why, when we look at the symbolism, astrologically speaking, of these planets, we can see why Jupiter is so associated with hope and faith and optimism, because Jupiter was raised with absolute optimism that great things were destined for him. And so Jupiter brings that knowing to us. However, for Neptune, it was different, right? And so Neptune took on the providence of the sea. Pluto took on the providence of the underworld. And it was, of course, Jupiter that took on the providence of the sky. And so we have Neptune. Now, I want you to think about the sea for a moment. I touched on this just a moment ago, but think about how it holds this whole other universe. And myths have been created around the possibility of worlds that exist underneath or did exist within the worlds of the ocean. And you think about how so much of what is under the ocean is still a mystery to us. And now take that to the perspective of the ancients. When you go into the ocean, you can only be there so long without other chemical support or a snorkel or something, right? You need to have that sense of access to air as a human being. And so there's this sense of inaccessibility to the depths of what the ocean actually holds. But whatever the ocean takes in, it assimilates in some way. And so it is with Neptune. Neptune represents that sense of vastness, that sense of mystery, but also think about how I would say just about every religious tradition out there, present and past, just about everyone I can think of, certainly the major ones, whenever it is that people want to convert, they want to become part of that religion, in some way, water is part of the ritual of cleansing the past, releasing the past, and now becoming something else, becoming something new. Water is powerfully symbolic of leaving behind, giving to the water what it is that you no longer wish to carry into your future, what no longer is going to define you moving into the future from here. And so now let's consider all of this in the context of Neptune stationary retrograde. This is water standing still, but also a whole lot going on with it. This is the possibility and the promise of how water can cleanse, and yet water can also hold and reveal what it is that has yet to be cleansed. Water can eliminate debris that has gotten in the way of clear perception, but it can also be one of those forces that obscures our perception as well. And with the retrograde, that may very well be part of the picture now. I think a lot of us might just be feeling like we need more rest, that we are feeling aware of our disappointments, perhaps feeling energetically low. And that's where taking the best of care of ourselves becomes incredibly important. Right now, Neptune is in water sign Pisces. This is its modern sign rulership. And so there's this sense of psychic ability on high, but we don't know if what we're perceiving is our intuitive truth or whether it is our own fears that we're projecting onto a situation. Now, here's another layer to consider. Early Tuesday is when Neptune officially goes retrograde, although we are feeling this as we begin the week, that uncertainty, a malaise, if you will. And we know we want something to change, but we may not be able to put our finger on exactly what that is just yet. There may be some truth we're having to look at, even if it's hard and even if it's disappointing. Later on, the same day, hours later, we get a new moon. And this new moon is happening in fellow water sign Cancer. Now, this new moon is an interesting one because it is speaking with the ancient ruling planet of Pisces, Jupiter, in a conversation of tension. Now, new moons tend to bring with them new beginnings, fresh understandings. And just when we think we know what our beginning is to be, well, it may be that we overshoot the mark at this time. We've got somewhat of an alliance with Uranus, somewhat of an alignment, but it's a wide sextile, meaning that it is a harmonious alignment, but it needs our very clear intention to tap into it. That Uranian energy is very hopeful. It is exciting. It is filled with possibility for clarity and change and truth that leaps us into the future. And at the same time, we've got this sense of uncertainty on top of uncertainty. And so what do we do at a time like this? Well, Cancer is the energy of care. Whenever it is that Neptune is stationed retrograde, we've got to make sure that we're taking the best of care. And all of this says, take care of you. If you are someone who is prone to emotional ups and downs, well, a part of the spiritual journey of a lot of us out there is to learn through our emotions. And that may be the case for you. And if that is the case, this is a time to accept that and to do whatever it is that you know works for you as part of taking the best care of yourself. So if you know that when your emotions are up and down, well, look, rest is a big healer at a time like this, especially with Neptune stationary retrograde. A lot of us are going to be feeling sleepy, and that's actually a really good thing because it is in the state of sleep that we're able to resolve so much at a time like this. Whereas just the energy of Neptune stationary retrograde can be disillusioning and disappointing, we may end up actually resolving a lot of that in the dream space so that we don't necessarily have to experience that in our day-to-day lives, although that may happen as well. And if it does, it's okay. The great thing about emotion, and as we walk the path of being aware of our emotions, is that as we address what it is that we feel and we approach it with a curiosity, wanting to learn about ourselves through what we feel, well, it's amazing how those emotions no longer have the same power over us. When our emotions don't have power over us, we get to decide how we're going to respond instead of immediately having a reaction to every stimuli around us. We get to consciously choose our responses, which ultimately say something about who we know ourselves to be. That is a place of power. That is a place of certainty. Now, outside of these big energies that chances are a lot of us are going to be feeling as we begin the week, Mars is active this week as well. So is Mercury, Venus as well. So there's a lot to talk about here. Let's talk about Mars. At the beginning of the week on Monday, Mars is going to speak in harmony with Saturn and then is going to end the week in a conversation of tension with Pluto. So that Saturnian energy is stabilizing. It's actually deciding how we're going to direct our will to our advantage and towards our long-term goals. The fact that this is happening under the light of Neptune station retrograde, and as we're approaching a new moon in a very emotional energy of Cancer, I actually think this can work profoundly to our advantage. Mars right now in its home sign of Aries is strong. It is in a sign it likes to be. It's able to bring forward its more confident and forthright ability to demonstrate determination and to see an impulse through to fruition. It's about owning one's energy and owning one's free will and deciding where you're going to focus it. So this is very powerful. Having the support of Saturn brings a steadiness to long-term goals in particular, allowing us again to go back to this idea of not just being open to any stimuli that we respond to, but rather being able to be smart about and choose responses that ultimately are going to fuel healthy self-respect. Saturn, astrologically speaking, symbolically speaking, is always wanting to affirm self-respect, is wanting to help us to understand that when we act from a place of integrity, meaning that we do what it is that we say we're going to do, we act from a place of knowing our identity and staying true to that identity through our actions. Well, these are ways in which we foster and strengthen healthy self-respect. It is at the beginning of the week that we understand how to best direct our energy so that we do move towards that self-respect that matters to us. But it is at the end of the week on Saturday, Mars speaking in a conversation of tension with Pluto. Well, that's pretty intense, I have to say. This is the ancient ruling planet of Scorpio and the modern ruling planet of Scorpio at tension, right? I don't want to say that they're at odds. That would be an opposition. This is a square. And so it means that they're trying to figure out how to integrate their energies. They understand that they can serve each other, that they need each other, but it is through tension, through identifying that something's got to change, and through taking intelligent action that meaningful transformation can take place at this time. It is that Mars finishing off the sign of Aries, right? Its home sign, as I mentioned earlier. This is very powerful. This is our own will and the intensity of understanding the root cause of our reactions that can show up now. There is the promise here and the potential here to hone in and use our will strategically towards the change and transformation that we require. And chances are there's going to be an intensity of desire for change, an intensity of emotion at this time. Now, one thing I do want to mention, and I would be remiss if I didn't, I'm always very cautious about what I share in terms of world events. And the reason is because I don't want to inadvertently say something that gives people permission to do things that they might not otherwise do, whether that's collectively, whether that's individually. And so I'm always very careful about interpreting things in a way that empowers us, okay? I did want to mention something, and I'm a little reluctant to do this, but let me do this. If you think back, it was Mars that was right here way back on January 6th. And so if you think about what was taking place January 6, 2021, and right now there are hearings taking place in regards to that. But if you think back, it was after an extended period of a Mars retrograde season, and there was a whole lot of energy just building over a period of really 7 months. And then just before Mars left the sign of Aries, of course, we had this moment of culmination. Now, here we are again, and we are getting another look. And so I find it really fascinating that Mars is where Mars was way back then at the end of this week. And as a collective, and especially American friends and fans, are having to look again at what took place back then. And so we have some similarity here, and we've got that energy of Pluto as well, adding some intensity. And so it's going to be up to each of us to decide that we are going to direct this energy towards some higher transformation meaningful to us, to get to a core understanding, to transform from the inside out, to see differently, even if it's hard, but to see in a way ultimately that aligns us with principles of greater love and greater wisdom. That's going to be my intention, and I hope that that's our collective intention as well. And that's really why I share this. We don't have to have a repeat of anything that took place before. We really don't, because we participate in the unfoldment of the cosmos. We participate in the unfoldment of the universe. It is a relationship that we have with the sky. It isn't that the sky is happening to us. The sky is a mirror, but then when we look in a mirror, right, we're going to see different things depending on the lens that we bring. And so this is an opportunity, I think, for us to see with a lens of genuine healing, to really look at ourselves and to understand how to create meaningful change from the inside out and what that actually might look like. And so my hope is that the more strategic part of this energy is allowed to come forward, or that we choose for it to come forward. And the more strategic part is really an eye towards what meaningful transformation looks like in our own lives individually. But yes, how are we going to harness our power to have a positive influence on the collective, to understand how meaningful transformation can take place for all of us? Now, individually, yes, there may be a lot of emotion. There may be experiences that we're having that feel like they provoke us or trigger us in some way, perhaps push our buttons in some way. Some old stuff feels like it gets stirred at this time as part of our own individual journeys. And so it becomes very important to, again, take the best of care of you. If you know that there are certain people in your life or certain types of media when you expose yourself to, if you know that that ends up triggering you in a way that isn't necessarily healthy for you, doesn't empower you, well, that may be something to take into consideration when you consider whom it is that you're going to interact with at a time like this. Practice self-care, because when you do, you're able to be that much more effective in the world. You're able to that much more keep the intention of love and wisdom very much at the forefront at a time like this. Now, Mercury is also active at the end of the week, and I think this will end up being a massive saving grace from that intense energy of Mars and Pluto, because it is going to be Mercury that, on the one hand, speaks in supreme harmony with Saturn, but will also speak in a conversation of tension with Neptune. Now, it's that Neptunian energy that we are going to need to pay attention to for a few reasons. I actually think that what is happening with Mercury right now, this represents energy that's going to be with us late this year. And so once we get later into August, it is going to be Mars that moves into Gemini, and then we'll go into shadow in September. And then in October, we'll go retrograde. And as we move towards the later part of this year, it's going to be really interesting because as part of the larger Mars retrograde season in the sign of Gemini, we're going to have Mars speaking in supreme harmony with Saturn, but also holding tight a conversation of tension with Neptune. And so I feel like right now it's a little bit of a test run with a week like this, where we have the motivation there, some very powerful energies with Mars and Pluto. But we also have an opportunity here to consider messaging, the messages that we're receiving, the messages that we are giving. On the one hand, we see the smart thing to do and a way to perceive with the bigger picture in mind, the mature pathway to take, and how to approach a situation and communicate a situation in a way that is grounded and has an eye towards measured and mature outcomes. However, that energy of Neptune and Mercury and Gemini, well, look, that is a whole lot of confusion and mixed messages and mixed feelings and not really sure what we want, but also not really sure if the information we're receiving is accurate or honest. Now, the themes that arise as we get to the end of this week, pay attention to them, because we are going to be collectively in these energies in a much more focused way once we get just a little bit further into this year, once we get into the later part of the summer. It's not that far away. And so this is a time to pay attention and see if you like the way in which the energy is going for you, and then deciding whether or not you want to continue with it, whether or not this is how you want to access these energies of mind and communication, and how you are expressing yourself, how you are being understood, how you feel about what it is that you have to say, but also how you feel about what you're allowing to find you, the information that you are, again, consuming. What thoughts are you holding in your mind? And where is it that what information, conversations that you're having, where does it fuel self-value? Where does it fuel peace? And where does it not? And so now is the time to observe so that we can consciously decide how we're going to direct these energies. And the best way to direct these energies really is to tap into that Saturn, to take a more grounded perspective and position as part of how we're going to see the world, and to choose to see ourselves with the lens of maturity. Again, fueling self-respect, thinking in ways that affirm self-respect is the great gift of Saturn at this time. Now, finally, it is under the light of the new moon on Tuesday. I want to add, where it comes to love, Venus is speaking in harmony with Jupiter. I love this energy for us, even though we have the sun squaring Jupiter, new moon squaring Jupiter. So there is that tension there that I talked about earlier. At the same time, though, we have this beautiful, supportive, romantic energy that I think is going to be so uplifting for so many of us out there. It really is this energy that is going to invite us to embrace a different understanding. An understanding that allows us to see ourselves with eyes of love, that encourages us to perceive and to speak kindly to each other. But of course, where it comes to romance in your life, if it is that you are wanting to have one of these moments where love is the solace, flirtation is the solace, this really is the moment for you. As much as we may not necessarily be feeling so secure with that new moon energy, with Neptune station retro, at the same time, though, it is genuine companionship and love, romantic, familial, friendship, and otherwise, that can end up being just the empowering support we need so that we make the choice to focus in on the love that is there and the love that has yet to be. What I love about this week for us, well, look, there's a lot here. It's a powerful astrological moment. I absolutely love the energy with a week like this. I feel like there is so much promise, so much potential, and so much hope. I know that it is a varied sky. There is some intense energy as we navigate forward. And yet, we also have some truly empowering opportunities here to understand, to have that appreciation of what healthy self-respect looks like for us, and to act from that space, to keep the big picture in mind so that we strengthen healthy self-respect and self-value, so that we act from a place that we can feel good about. And that in turn will allow us to navigate whatever emotional environment we may find ourselves in, so that we learn from it, and so that we move in a direction where we feel we become better. Well, thank you so much for watching. What do you love about this week? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading you guys. And to prove it to you, here are some of my most recent favorite comments. Thank you to everybody who likes, who comments, who subscribes, who shares, who thumbs up. All of it means so much. And of course, if you want to know how all this wonderful stuff this week speaks to you in your sign, log on to NadiyaShahSuperstars.com, where you get expanded, exclusive video scopes each and every week for each and every sign for as low as just $3 a month with Choose Your Membership rate. Now, higher tiers get you things like all access passes to Synchronicity University events, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space. I look forward to meeting you there at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com. Link is in the description below. YouTube for astrologers at the world-renowned Kepler College. Now, join me for this definitive business course. It is the only business course that I teach every year, and it is only at Kepler College. Now, if it is that you sign up, what you get is you get mentorship. You get to see behind the curtain. You really get to see the different aspects of what it is to run a business where your spiritual growth and your spiritual sharing is very much at the forefront. You don't need to be an astrologer in order to make the most of this class. In fact, it really is just the first class where we touch on understanding your chart and picking a good launch date for you based on astrological principles and understanding your own chart in terms of marketing or sharing what it is that you do in your own unique way. However, much of this 5-week course is very practical. It's rooted in understanding the different social media platforms, how you're going to go about sharing. It's understanding the prosperity element of entrepreneurship with 2 classes that have elements that have to do with understanding making money and prosperity and all of that. And so much more, like everything from understanding your own intention, being committed to your plan, being committed to your voice, being willing to change, and then the really practical things that you can do, and all that I've learned along the way in almost 16 years as a full-time astrologer. Well, all of that is going to be shared with you. Again, mentorship is a big part of this course, and that's why we keep the enrollment really low. And this course always sells out. Every single year it fills up. And this is the 3rd year that I'm going to be teaching it, so it is expected to sell out. And so the course starts in about 3 weeks or 4 weeks or so. So it starts really, really soon. And so if it is that you want something that really helps you feel like you are really helping yourself to kick what you do into high gear, or to take what you do and turn it into a professional pursuit, this really could be the course for you. So I hope that you'll check it out. Link is in the description below at KEPLERCollege.org. And there you'll get to see the whole syllabus and what's involved in the course and get to decide if it is for you. And I hope that you do. And it would be wonderful to meet you in class. The classes really are very interactive. And so we really do get to meet each other. We get to talk to each other on camera in this small class size. And you get your questions answered, but also I hope I give you even more things to think about than you had anticipated as part of really laying the foundation for a successful and prosperous entrepreneurial and spiritual endeavor moving forward from here. So again, that's KEPLERCollege.org. Link is in the description below. Synchronicity University presents incredible events coming up this July, very soon, and you have just a few days left to choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class, an unheard of rate for this caliber of incredible astrologers. Well, here, let me tell you, we have a July speaker series and we have Marc Laurenson. Let's start with the July speaker series. Again, just a few days left to choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class. So here are some of the incredible topics and absolutely incredible teachers you'll be learning from. The one and only Christopher Renstrom, superstar astrologer. Christopher Renstrom, you will be able to learn all about Chiron from him. Now, if you saw the interviews that I've already posted, you know that these people really understand what they're talking about. And Christopher Renstrom, my goodness, he has such a depth of understanding Chiron that I ended up benefiting from as well during that interview. So I hope that you'll check that out here on my YouTube channel. But he's going to be teaching about Chiron. We have my friend Christina Divina, who's going to be teaching about Neptune in the astrology chart. My friend Clarissa Dolphin, brilliant vibrational astrologer Clarissa Dolphin, will be teaching about the South Node in astrology. So few teach on the South Node, and so it'll be so great to get her perspective and understanding of that. We are going to have Janae Anthony. Now, I loved my talk with Janae, and she's going to be looking at understanding sex in the astrology chart. And so I think that's going to be a really rewarding perspective as well. And then we have Alexis Duong, and she's going to be teaching on how it is that we can be positive when we know that there are things in life that can be difficult. So she's going to be bringing that philosophical approach to astrology that I love so very much. So again, there's just a few days left to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class. This really is the time to jump on to synchronicityuniversity.com, learn more about these classes, and sign up if you are so inspired, and we really hope that you are. I'm so proud of Synchronicity University bringing quality astrological education to the masses, like literally making accessible to the masses with Choose Your Tuition Rate on right now and just for a few more days at synchronicityuniversity.com. Synchronicity University presents the one and only Marc Laurenson, superstar Australian astrologer Marc Laurenson from the Sydney School of Astrology, and he's coming to Synchronicity University. I couldn't be more proud. Now, he is going to teach on the soul's mission in the birth chart, and I'll tell you, Marc is pro. He is an expert. He really is somebody who understands not only astrology and his expertise there, but he understands how to teach as well. And this is going to be one of those experiences that I think will stay with students long after the class is over. It is a 5-week course. You really are going to come to see your chart very differently than you did before. That is something that I can promise you. And Marc Laurenson just never teaches at this rate, like never. You never get to learn from Marc Laurenson for as low as just $5 a class. It's just unheard of. So I hope that you will check this out. And this really is an opportunity not to be missed. So links are in the description below, and you can check out synchronicityuniversity.com. Marc Laurenson for the unheard of rate of just $5 a class for just a few more days. His class is starting very soon in the month of July. Links are in the description below. And thank you. Thank you so much for this moment with you. Thank you for your trust. I'm so grateful for all of it. I really hope that you're enjoying all the videos that I've been posting on Instagram, on TikTok, and of course here on my YouTube channel as well, with the different shorts and reels and TikToks and all of that. Thank you for the positive feedback. I'm so grateful for that. So just how wonderful to stay connected with you in all these different ways and to feel your love and appreciation for what it is that I have to share. Thank you so much. And thank you again for watching. It'll be a great week. Enjoy. Welcome to the exciting rebirth of Superstar, featuring choose your membership rate as low as just $3 a month. At Superstar, you get expanded, exclusive video scopes each and every week, unlimited access to special horoscopes, class passes for Synchronicity University, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space. I look forward to meeting you there.